Hello, and welcome to the Plenty of Positivity podcast. I am your host, Courtney Beck, and today we have a very special guest, Dennis Connors. Dennis is a TEDx speaker, a Paralympic silver medalist, two-time paracycling world champion, combat veteran, traumatic brain injury and stroke survivor, and stay-at-home dad. He served 9 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, completing 3 deployments to Iraq. It is my absolute honor to welcome Dennis Connors.
Thanks, Courtney. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for coming on. I am absolutely thrilled to have you on this podcast. And once again, it truly is an honor. So I thought we would start right away. So Dennis, if you could provide maybe the audience your introduction and a background of yourself.
Yeah. So obviously, you know my name now. But a quick background about me is I grew up, I'll call it half in Southern California and then half in San Francisco Bay Area. As a kid, I lived in the mountains in Southern California and was kind of into just the outdoors, playing outside, you know, all those things we did as kids. Played hockey. That was my main sport. It was a great sport. Played hockey till I was about 14 because at about age 12, I think actually age 11, I found rock climbing. A small rock climbing gym opened in my neighborhood and a friend of mine had like 2 free passes. And he's like, hey, let's go try this thing out. Our moms brought us down there and like both of us hooked for the rest of our lives, right? Like he's still like river guides and in the mountains and he's climbing all the time. And it just hooked me. Started climbing, and by age 15, I was on the U.S. national team. I was competing all over the country. And then I was, as a teenager, competing in like the able-bodied, like pro world as a teenager. There was a handful of us who were doing it, and they're still around. One of those guys just climbed a building on Netflix. So that was kind of a fun area growing up in that Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. A couple guys have done the hardest routes on El Capitan. Super fun community to grow up in. Still in contact with, especially one of the guys that we competed as teenagers. Just a great community to be in. So I grew up as a rock climber, and it kind of instilled this sense of adventure into me, you know, traveling around, going out. And I didn't really want to join high school, like go to college right out of high school. So I was looking at options, and I was really inspired by my grandfather, or both grandfathers who were World War II veterans, and my uncle who's a Vietnam veteran. And so I decided to join the Marine Corps. I joined the Marine Corps, I think it was like 11 or 17, something like that, like within 2 weeks of us invading Iraq in 2003. And I was like, oh boy, this really changed. But that's okay. That's what I joined to do. And I joined the Marine Corps to be in the air side. Like I wanted to be a pilot at some point, but then I would have to get my degree, so I was going to use the Marine Corps to do that. They gave me some tests, and it qualified me to be an intelligence specialist, a cryptological linguist. And so, 17-year-old me, they pull me in like the sergeant major of the recruiting station. Hey, you're going to go be this like super spy with like a beard and long hair, and it's all James Bond, like suits and ties. And I was like, that sounds fantastic. And that is an intelligence collection job. But he didn't know anything about the intelligence collection world. It was not the job he was signing me up for. So I got placed in this signals intelligence, which is intercepting the communications of our adversaries and then translating them. Joined the Marine Corps, went through boot camp, went through my initial schooling, and was like, all right, when do we start this like cool spy school stuff? And the guys that were like, that's not what you're going to do, but like they got you. And I was like, oh, great. But I did well. I did well in my schools, and I got a couple meritorious promotions and got sent to the National Security Agency instead of a Marine Corps unit because I was a Spanish linguist. And you're like, why do they need to teach people Spanish? Isn't there enough Spanish speakers already? Well, what had happened was it was 2004. The war was in full throttle. Teaching people Arabic, basics of Arabic is like 18 months plus 6 months of follow-on school. Teaching people Spanish is 6 months 2 months of follow-on school, and then you go right to the Fleet Marine Forces and right over to Iraq. You're not doing the linguist stuff, you're doing the signals collection stuff. So you're kind of in there like capturing enemy cell phone type communications interception. So they needed us to do that. However, I got orders to the National Security Agency instead of a Marine unit, which was really cool. And I got to work counter narcotics missions for about 2 years. But it drove me insane because it was cubicle land. It was joint services, all the branches were there. There's very few Marines. All I wanted to do was go fight the war, and they had stuck me in a cubicle. So I didn't do very well until I had my first true leader, right? And I think this is a big thing that I learned in the military intelligence community. I had my first true leader who kind of saw a little bit of himself like in me. And he was like, "You're not doing very well behind this desk, but I think you would do very well out in the field." So he got me like into some classes that like qualified me as like some sort of analyst or like some code, right? And 2007 came around and the troop surge happened, where we sent like 30 or 50,000 extra troops to Iraq. And I was one of them. And it was the best job ever. But it was during that time that I loved my job so much. And being one of like 5 Marines on a base full of Army as soldiers, had to be like the toughest guys there, right? We got attacked a lot. And that is when I had my first traumatic brain injuries. But I didn't know about them. So fast forward, I'm working there and I'm going through my Marine Corps career. And I end up getting tasked to a special operations unit. That's where I see that job that I originally wanted to sign up for, where they were out with the long hair and this other stuff, and they did what's called human intelligence collection, where you gather intelligence from sources that are humans as opposed to electronics. And I was like, yes, that's what I wanted to do. Can I do that in the Marine Corps? And yes, but you had to go through a whole assessment and selection process. You had to be vetted, and then you had to be accepted, and then you go to the school. And I only know this stat because I ended up running that recruiting side. I did get accepted and graduated the school. For every 100 Marines that apply, says I want to go to the counterintelligence, human intelligence side, 1 will make it through the pipeline. It's very, very difficult. So I made it through that pipeline. And then I did a second deployment with a Marine Infantry unit, 2009. That was in Ramadi, Iraq, one of the most dangerous cities. However, we're starting to draw down in Western Iraq. And the base little outpost I was on closed. And during that deployment, I would get more TBIs that I just toughed out. That draws down, I get tasked over because I had been, that other type of intelligence and worked with the Army Special Forces. There was a Navy SEAL team. And I'm like, can I go work with them? And they're like, yeah, we'd love to have you. So I went and worked with the Navy SEAL team for a bit towards the end of that deployment. I come back from that deployment. I'm home for like a week. And I get a call from my lieutenant. Hey, we need you to come in. You're going back out. And I was like, dude, we just got home from a 7-month deployment. I'm not going back out. And he's like, you're going back out in 2 weeks. And I was like, okay. Little did I know there was some things happening behind the scene. I get all these orders to all these different places. People are like, I don't know what any of this stuff means. Like, you human guys are all spooky and spies and secret, and we don't go to this base, get this, go to this base, get this. And I end up at this base, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, at this gate, has nothing marking it, not like I have like my weapons, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I just want to go overseas to be this reports officer, just read reports.
Mm-hmm.
It ended up being a tier 1 special operations unit, the highest level of special ops you can go to. And the guy who had recruited me into counterintelligence was working there and worked behind the scenes to get me to that unit. So then I did a third deployment with a tier 1 special operations unit, kind of a combo of the guys known as Delta Force. Recently they were in the news going into Venezuela. And then, so I was their human intelligence collector in Western Iraq I was civilian clothes, long hair. They gave me a pickup truck, a bag of cash, and said, go find bad guys.
My goodness.
Yeah, it was a really fun job. Come back from that deployment, I went through an advanced school, but then at that time, the Marine Corps basically said, hey, you're going to get promoted. You can go sit at a desk at this base. That's your next option. And I was like, hey, I want to go back to the special operations community. They want me full time. Marine Corps said, sorry, we need you in the Marine Corps, not over there. And so then I made the decision. I was like, well, I'm going to get out. And right about that time is when I met my now wife. And she was like, you know what? Like, you're a lot happier when we're out rock climbing and skiing. I think you should take a break. And so we got out, moved to Utah, and I went to grad school, University of Utah. We skied and climbed a ton. That's where I kind of got into cycling a little bit because I was studying outdoor rec programs for vets and found one. The company I was working for had bought a cycling company too, so they got me into cycling. And then I started suffering really bad from PTSD and used cycling as a form of therapy to get over that, which kind of led me to meeting some people in the para community who then told me to, hey, get checked out for TBI because you ride your bike like a 3-year-old. You're just all over the road. We don't want to ride next to you. You have balance issues. You have more combat experience than all of us combined. And I ended up going to my first paracycling race, and I just got hooked. And since then, it's been that. I started training, wanted to go to Tokyo Paralympics, and then in 2020, I had a full-blown second stroke. That took 9 months to recover from. But if you want a little bit more of that story, talk about that in my TEDx talk that you mentioned. But I really had to redefine perseverance for myself at that point, like that traditional tough it out grit mentality. It didn't work. So I was a stay-at-home dad. My wife got a job in Oregon at Nike. She got recruited by Nike, and I became a stay-at-home dad. So I'm from like special ops guy to changing diapers guy, like stay-at-home dad with bottles and the whole nine. And I've been that for 10 years, and now full-time doing the paracycling thing, back in paraclimbing a little bit, back on snow. Took a couple years after that stroke to figure out how to get back on snow. But yeah, so now that's my life. That's kind of me.
Dennis, thank you so much for that.
It's long. Sorry, it's hard to like say it quickly.
No, and like that's the thing. I want to kind of dissect. You have so many different interests. We were talking before, and I was fascinated by the fact, just like you said, it was cycling, snowboarding, and climbing. And the climbing part, I just find so fascinating. I mean, talk about how difficult that is. I can't even imagine. But all of those 3 sports, I really do. I want to kind of go through each one.
Yeah.
But first, I want to thank you for your military service for this country. Absolutely. And I do want to also recognize, as you were speaking about your military experience, but you were awarded the 3rd highest meritorious medal in the United States military, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal by U.S. Special Operations Command for intelligence operations in combat in 2010. And so I wanted to start there. Like, when you received that honor, what did it mean to you? I just kind of want to open up the floor to you.
Yeah, that was a pretty special award. That originally put me in for a Bronze Star for that, which is it's kind of equivalent, but a little bit higher. But in the Marine Corps, Bronze Stars, because it's a joint service, in the Army, you can get a Bronze Star for your service. In the Marine Corps, you can only get a Bronze Star for an act of valor. So you have to have done an act of valor in order to get a Bronze Star. So they awarded me this Defense Meritorious Service Medal. I didn't know it was coming, which was pretty amazing. During that deployment, I was the sole human intelligence collector in Western Iraq. I did a lot of interrogations, a lot of source operations, a lot of learning to build teams from the ground up because I didn't have a team with me. Like Whereas like a lot of times you're with a team, you're the intel guy, and then that team that goes out and does the assault is right there. I was out and they were way back in Baghdad, which was probably an hour by helicopter at best, like once they were on the helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a regular Navy SEAL team on the base in Ramadi. So I really worked with them to kind of help them out with like executing targets and going out and giving them the information, even though like I wasn't their intel collector. It was like one fight, right? So I worked with them and I had to build a ton of trust with them because they would they don't know who I was. Like I was just like Dennis, right? Like I just had like plain clothes and a little boat and a pickup truck. And they're like, who is this guy running around the city? Like coming in and be like, I know where this bad guy is. We should go get him. But then I would build that trust by going out with them on the operation, not just sending them out, right, into the danger. I would go out with them because I could maybe collect more intelligence then. And then when I got that award, I was back at our Marine, just like a regular Marine Corps intelligence unit at the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force on Camp Pendleton. And it was actually kind of funny when this award came through, because when you get awards, they give them in order of the hierarchy of awards,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like there was 2 other Marines that day getting an award. There was a full bird colonel, so like really high ranking military officer getting award, and a sergeant major, the highest like enlisted rank you can be in the Marine Corps. And so they were getting their end of like cycle awards. They all at that level, like they just give you an award at the end of your cycle, like every 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
When you move, you get like, if you're the leader, you get an award. It's kind of silly. Kind of actually was ridiculous if you asked me. But it kind of was cool because they got this award. The sergeant major got his, and then the colonel got his, and everyone's like, oh, and then like I'm a staff sergeant and I walk out and get this award, and they're both like, what? Who's this guy? And I was like, thanks, I gotta leave. Like I was like, 1, I was embarrassed. 2, I was like, kind of like, oh yeah. But it just showed like that Special Operations Command. The reason I was able to do that stuff and put myself into that and comfortably put myself into harm's way is because they inherently trusted me in the job that they had selected me for. Once I got selected for that, they were like, you're in, we trust you. What do you need to be a better collector? Instead of like on the Marine Corps side where I'm always trying to justifying something like, hey, we need to go out and do this operation. Well, is it dangerous? Is it this? Is it that? No. When I got there, we could do those higher level operations because they trusted me. They said, we trust you. We know that if you say this is what it is what it is. And yes, how can we help you? So it was a big difference. So like that award showed me that like, you know, I was able to flourish and get that kind of award, even though like it was because I had this team behind me that supported me fully. And like I kind of talk about that in keynotes I do with business and keynote with organizations. It's like, hey, like once you are selected, once you make that hire and like you have that person in there, you need to trust them 100% to do their job. And if you selected them to do their job, like, and then you don't trust them, that's like, that goes back on you. And everybody in that command, you know, we were very open in communications with each other and talked a lot, and just we did a lot of debriefing that was very critical, you know, and if something was wrong, you would call it out, and then that person would be like, well, I didn't do that. They'd be like, oh, I didn't know I did that. Okay, I won't do that next time. You know, because they trust you and you trust them to make sure you know their mistakes. And they just really, really trusted me and had this, yes, how can we help mentality that just made the team flourish and made it so I was able to get that award.
That's incredible. I mean, when you speak about just that word trust, and you know, when you look at the award that you got alongside of it, I think that's such an incredible lesson for, I mean, just all of us just listening to that, and how I think about it, even how that translates into one's professional career. Like you said, I mean, just the leadership that you really do when you are building that team, that you are trusting each individual within their, specific role, specific position, that they are going to carry that out, but you're trusting them in that process. And I really do. I think that's what really does build the foundation really for successful teams. And so my question for you though is, when you were in the military, as you reflect back, and then you've hit the highest level of elite sports, what type of skills or mindset have you been able to pull from your military experience over into that elite level sport?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the biggest parts of it, going from elite military to elite sport, is as I started to get into special operations, right? I was doing some training before I got sent over there. And I met a guy who is now literally my best friend. He was like the best man at my wedding, but he was a little bit ahead of me. Well, actually, he was quite a bit ahead of me in training and experience. And he told me, hey, man, like no matter what you do at this command, that command, whatever you do, the brilliance is in the basics. You have to have the basics down no matter what. And then you will rely on the basics. And a lot of people forget that as they get more advanced. And then I bring it over to like, let's talk about like elite paracycling, right? Well, we could talk about, adding like getting an aero bike and aero wheels and these like, there's all these little things nuances that you could get into. But if you don't have the brilliance and the basics of competitive mindset, sleep, nutrition, you're an athlete, like it doesn't matter how elite you get, the brilliance is in the basics. So I really took that like to heart when I went through special operations. They would want me to do these really complex things, right? Like driving out in like a pickup truck. And I was like, I had an asset I was running who had an Al Qaeda member who like wanted to get higher rank at Al Qaeda. So he's like willing to give other people up. And I was like, oh okay, like, but you're going to give those guys up and then we're just going to come capture you too. But sweet. Like, and so like I remember like driving out there like by myself with my interpreter and this Iraqi guy who knew this guy, who was a trusted source at that point. But I'm thinking to myself like, oh my God, like don't get captured by Al Qaeda. Like, am I walking into a trap? But I had all the basics down and I had trusted my team, the teamwork. I had my communications plan down. I had all these basics down that made it so that actually mitigated a lot of the risk. And then I do that when I go to a race. It is the same mentality. And I think it's actually one of my competitive edges that I can say out loud, right? Like I have this mindset of like when I get to the line on a race, it's just like when I got to the line before I left a base to go out on. It's the same thing. So I have that mentality. The brilliance is in the basics. Do I have all the basics down before I can move up the ladder? And like I think that's big, like in anything, like in business, in life, in parenting. Like you have the basics down, then move on.
That's so true. I love that. The brilliance is in the basics. I think about it too, speaking about sport, but laying a solid foundation down upon which you continue to build. If you don't have that solid foundation, like you said, the nutrition for sport, for example, like really the very basics outside of the sport, even, you're not going to be able to perform obviously at your best. But I really like that, Dennis. I mean, the brilliance is in the basics. I'm going to
Yeah.
remember that one. And I want to transition into, I'm
Yeah.
so excited for you. Big congratulations. You made it to the TEDx stage. Congratulations, Dennis. I would love to hear actually like leading up to the TEDx. What was that journey like? And then what was it like when you were standing on that TEDx stage?
Yeah. It was going into the TEDx stage was quite the experience. So I was fortunate enough. I live here in Beaverton, Oregon, right outside Portland, to speak at TEDx Portland. TEDx Portland is the largest TEDx event in North America and like in the top 5 largest TEDx events in the world. There's like 25 or 3,500 TEDx events, and it's in the top 5. And so it's a big event. I had no idea what I was signing up for. It's kind of like how I ended up at Special Operations Command. Like, what is this? Like, oh, you want to do this? Sure, I'll do it. Like, but it was kind of serendipitous because, after silver medal in Paris, 2 world champion titles, I was talking to one of my best friends, and he's like, dude, like, you have this story of resilience. Like, I don't know how you're going to do it, but we need to share it to the world. Like, people can learn from it. And you'd be doing the world a disservice if you just kept it to yourself. And working with like some agents of mine that I did like through a sponsorship through Comcast, and they're like, hey man, like you're pretty good at speaking. And I'm like, really? Like, I don't feel that way. I got ataxia and brain injuries, and I'm not super great at it. And I was flying to Washington, D.C. for the Team USA, like after Olympic, Paralympic kind of party they do. Like you get to go to the White House, you get to meet the president. Like it's fantastic. And I'm sitting there and I had like my like team shirt on, and this guy next to me is like, oh, did you compete in Paris? I'm like, yeah, I did. And he's like, oh, that's great. So we start talking about it. And he's like, man, that is a crazy story. Like I really feel like you should share it. Would you be interested in doing a TED Talk? And I was like, and this is kind of my brain like, hey, like maybe keynote speaking is like something I could do. Like maybe people want to hear this. And he's like, one of my good friends is one of the top like 3 people at TEDx Portland. I'm going to text him your info, say you're in Portland, and see if he'll get in contact with you, and I'll recommend you. And I'm like, okay. It's like a guy I met on an airplane, right? Like, and I'm like, okay, whatever, man. Like, sure.
That's
like an
like
hour
so meant
later,
to be, though.
yeah, and like an hour later, he texted me back and he was like, hey, I passed your information up to TEDx. They're already interested. Like, I think they're going to call you. The guy's name is David Paul. Like, he's going to call you. And sure enough, I got like a call from him. And he kind of interviewed me, and like they have some things like TEDx Portland, like you can't have ever done a TEDx talk before. Like, there's like, they have a lot of stipulations because of how big and how in depth their TEDx platform is. And then, I'm like, yeah. And then he said, oh, I got to take your recommendation to the board of directors. It's going to take a couple weeks. And like 3 days later, he called me back and he was like, they all said yes, like you're on board. I'm like, okay. And so then there was like a speakers get together in January of 25, and I'm in the room and I'm like, oh man, I have like imposter syndrome, like big time. Like these people are all incredible. I'm starting to look back at the speakers they had. They're like big name, like the best chef in Portland, who's like James Beard winner, like all like Christina LeBlanc and Christine Sinclair, like the best soccer players in the world. I'm just like, what am I doing here? But the brilliance is in the basics. So I went back, like, what do they want to hear? What is my story? Like, and it was really difficult because TEDx makes you tell an idea without using your story. Like your story is there to kind of support it, but you have to talk about an idea. And I kind of had this idea about redefining perseverance because the grit mentality almost killed me. That tough it out mentality that I learned in the military pretty much almost brought my life to an end with a suicide attempt. And it's only because I'm married to like the most incredible woman in the world that like she stopped me the night before. But when I hit bottom there, it was to come back up. And I redefined perseverance with a system of 4 kind of pillars. And that's what I did my TEDx talk about was that.
That's incredible. I mean, just the whole journey that you speak about leading up to that. And I think what was so interesting, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it seemed like that was so meant to be when you met that individual and they put you in touch, because really your story, when I was preparing for this conversation, it is absolutely remarkable what you have accomplished, both military as well as your sport professional career. absolutely amazing. And it's very inspiring to so many people. Like I said, I can't, specifically relate to like those certain sports. I was in gymnastics, but it's the whole idea of the bigger picture, like you were talking about, like the brilliance is in the basics, the leadership skills, the ability for you to believe in yourself, but then also, you were speaking about this too in the military, but when that one individual like believed in you to start climbing different ranks, like you said, to land in certain positions you never had imagined before. I think that there's really something to be said about that, and going through that experience that led you to that TEDx stage, to have that confidence though to speak about such an important topic. And I really do, like, as you mentioned that topic, I really want to dive into that more, because it's almost like I feel like in our society, it's like the pendulum swings from like one side to the other. So like you said, it's that like hardcore grit, like just keep going, like push through. And then on the flip side of the coin, if you don't push enough, you're not going to get to your goal. And so I would just love for you to maybe just speak about, I don't want to give away your TEDx. I know it's out there already,
Yeah.
but still, like, just speaking about it on this podcast, if you could describe as you chose that topic, and then just kind of elaborate on redefining perseverance.
Yeah. So I chose that topic because I was suffering from really severe PTSD that for years, I didn't know I had, and it was manifesting itself as nightmares, and then even hallucinations.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gotten to a point where everything was so dark that I felt myself as a liability to my family, no longer an asset. And the easiest thing to do would have been to take my own life and just make everybody else happy, which is not the case. It is so harmful, not just to you, but to every person you know and love. And so then, going into the TEDx, it was like I kind of had this idea, but then working with my speaker coach and working through the idea, TEDx was like the 15-minute talk was just months of thinking about the same topic and really diving deep into it and working through it and being able to put words to the actions that I had taken for about, 2018 is when I was planning to attempt suicide, and 2025 is when I spoke. So from 2018 to 2020, I really made a 180. And it's really because I finally was vulnerable. I opened up and was like, I'll go to therapy. I'll
Mm-hmm.
talk about my problems. My wife had my friends, no idea what I did. I kept all of it bottled up. I was like, yeah, I was an Intel guy and I deployed to Iraq. Like, I worked on computers. Oh yeah. And then they're like, wait, but you were getting shot at. And all this is, how is a computer guy doing that? And I'm like, oh, and I would talk around it. And I even told, like, at one point I told my father-in-law, like, I don't believe PTSD exists. I think it's for weak people. Because that's what I believed for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yet it was just tearing me apart. And on top of it, I had the traumatic brain injuries that I didn't know about. So after 2018, I was vulnerable. I opened up. And this is where I kind of was able to put words to it and share it with TED, because you want to be able to take that idea away and like utilize it. And I think you could utilize this in a lot of different settings. And you can go really deep into each one of these sections. The first one was vulnerability, really opening up to people that I knew, loved, friends, family, whatever. The next one was self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think anybody loved me, right? Like, I was like, oh yeah, my family loves me and whatever. Like, why do they love me? I'm not deserving. Like, I've done so many bad things on this world because my job was dark. Like, the Intel world, like, they call it going to the dark side. They teach you like dark arts. Like, it is not pretty. Like, you are doing very ruthless things. And that is what I was suffering from, PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And about the things I did, right? And I thought if I opened up, they would all see me differently. And there was no way that they could love me. But they really did. So the first, like, I really had to have self-love and rebuild that self-confidence, and like, I am enough. I am not just the awards I get, or even to this day, the bike races I win, or the climbing competitions I win, or whatever, like, I am who I am, and that is enough. So really stepping into that self-love aspect was really
Mm-hmm.
big. And there's an author, his name is Young Pueblo, And if you have an opportunity to just read, I think it's his first book, Inward. It's just a series of short like poems and writings that he did about self-love and reflection inward. That really changed my life. Then the next step is what you're talking about, is like there's too much grit, like to a point where like you're grinding yourself off a cliff.
Yeah.
And then there's not doing anything. So what I said is you have to take disciplined action, not just action. Your action has to be disciplined, and it has to be disciplined based on self-love and vulnerability. And when you identify those and you have that, then you can take the actions that you need. And then the last one was, and this was the biggest one, was community. Like I really leaned into my community. And then when I got into parasport, right, I had that second stroke, and I was like, okay, like I could just quit now. Like, and nobody would think twice. They'd be like, dude, you have like all this stuff. You have a second stroke. Just like relax into the sunset, man. Like nobody would think twice about it. But I had gone through somewhere so dark that like the stroke was just like a bump in the road at this point. Like I was like, nope, I'm going to get back to bike racing. I'm going to take the action I need to. I'm going to ask for all the help that I need. I'm going to be super open and vulnerable about what I need. And I'm going to love myself for being a new athlete with new disabilities. And then from there, I was able to work with my coach and take disciplined action to become the best trike rider in the world.
That is incredible, Dennis. My goodness, when you speak about vulnerability, I think what I was thinking about as you were talking about that, how that really does, it creates the ability to connect with others. Like you said, if that's family, if that's friends, or when you're even speaking on TEDx, how people could relate in certain capacities to build that connection. Because it's true, I think even on social media, I think about youth, adolescents, how everything just does. It seems very perfect and you can't make a mistake and you can't demonstrate certain feelings or emotions. But when somebody is able to share their story, I am all about storytelling, because I think it's so impactful, or can be so impactful, when it comes to encouraging others to maybe go for their goals, or to inspire others, and to also self-reflect that, wow, they went through XYZ, they overcame that. If I'm thinking about maybe, a goal or something and it's kind of dormant and I haven't even, really put it into action, well, my goodness, like if they could do it, then I could do it. And I think the storytelling, the vulnerability really does provide that sense of connection to where somebody could relate, and then also, like I said, go for their goals. But then you also, I like how you mentioned community, and I talk about community all the time on this podcast, and how important when it comes to like support system when we're going through different transitions in life. And that's what I want to get to right now. And I just want to highlight, you just said it at the end, but I have to highlight it again, because I mean, your accomplishments are truly remarkable. But you are a Paralympic silver medalist and a 2-time paracycling world champion. So Dennis, there you are, as you were transitioning into the cycling world, starting to train. What did that transition, like, how can you explain that journey as you were going through it? And then what motivated you to like climb yet again to hit that elite level in
Yeah.
sport?
So cycling is kind of the new thing in my life, right? Like I haven't been doing it for that long compared to how long I've been rock climbing and snowboarding. Um, but it's really fun. And what cycling gave me was, one, a community of disabled athletes who were all trying to be professional athletes, right? And it is intense. Bike racing, like people like I don't think realize how dangerous and how intense and how tactical it is. And so it kind of gave me back that feeling of like, okay, I'm preparing and I'm going out on this operation. Like, and it kind of gave me that same feeling. When I'm out there racing, like I'll have fun and joke and like right before, and then we get up to the line and there's actually one guy, we race internationally and you kind of learn and become friends with all the people and
Sure,
you know
sure.
everybody you race against. There's one guy from Austria who would always line up next to me. And he was like, I stopped lining up next to you because he's like, you're fun, like it's a joke. And then we get to the line
You're
and
busy.
you're terrifying. And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm racing. Like, he was like, I don't like lining up next to you. He's like, I'll line up a little bit back or a little bit. He's like, but I won't. He's like, I wanted to be next to you because when you go, like you go and like I can get on. But he was like, I do not want to line up next to you. So there was that aspect of it. So cycling kind of gave me that. And it gave me this community and Team USA, like, and it was a Paralympic sport. Rock climbing was not a Paralympic sport. I got into this cycling through, like I said, the PTSD. It's called Project Hero, is a nonprofit that does these group rides of veterans supporting veterans, really pushing themselves on these challenge rides. Like they're 7 days down the coast of California, and like we're literally pushing each other up hills. Like it's an incredible transformational experience. And then when I got into racing, I had another community of para athletes, right? So it gave me that. I always had the climbing community.
Mm-hmm.
I tell this to everybody, I'm a bike racer right now. That is what I do. I will always be a rock climber and a snowboarder because those are the things I love to do. And my coach actually realized, like, if I'm struggling with my training block, I'll look on my like calendar and all of a sudden it'll be like no bike riding and it's like climbing and I'm like, and he's like, you need to go climbing, like, or like snowboarding on the weekends or whatever. And because it's just who I am. And that's another thing, like, this might be a little bit off topic, but like one thing I try to work with people and coach, like coaching whoever, like coaching executives, like working with brands, is don't ever give up on the things that you love to do. And as a stay-at-home parent, I have seen, like, yes, my kids bring me so much joy, right? But they're not like climbing or snowboarding, or like if somebody loves something, a lot of times people give it up, and they give it up for work, and they give it up for career, and they give it up for family, and they give it, but that, like, it's my belief that just like eats away at you at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So really, like, not giving up those things that you love is so important. Like, you're going to be a better leader. You're going to be a better parent. You're going to be, if you are doing those things you love to do, and that's one thing I try to show my kids is like, no, we do all the things that mom and dad like fortunately, my wife and I have like the same exact hobbies. Like, we met in a climbing gym and our first date was skiing in a blizzard. Like, so
No way.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and she rips, right? Like, she's from Lake Tahoe area, like, and I got off the lift, took off, and I was like, okay, like former ski racer growing up, like,
You
yeah,
see.
just incredible. And so we're fortunate that like we both love the same things, and those are the things we love to do. And like my kids, they see us loving those things, and they know when we're not doing them, we're not as happy.
I am so happy that you mentioned this because it comes up on the podcast a lot, but I think it's a really interesting topic and people have a multitude of different perspectives on it. But this whole idea, I like to call it work life harmony in a way. But you think about it too, like even if you incorporate, sport in it and how sometimes it could be, 80-20, as I like to say, because you think of work life balance would be like 50-50 essentially. But I think that's so important that you make time and you really do have to kind of harmonize it to where, maybe one day is fully family day, but then you're able to take, the next day and to do sport because it fills your cup back up. So then you could, be the dad that you want to be with your kids. And so I love how you mentioned that. And I'm so curious. So you mentioned how much you love climbing. And then we were talking about, of course, cycling. So in comparison, what would you say is like the difference of challenge? Obviously, they're different sports, completely different sports. But what could you say is a challenge in cycling, whether that's the training, whether that's the competition itself, in comparison to climbing? And please educate me on like all of the technicality of climbing.
Yeah, so in cycling, like, as you ride and as you get bigger, The Tour de France is the biggest thing out there. Like if you're a cyclist, you watch the Tour, you watch bike racing. Like it is the pinnacle of cycling, like the high-end racing. Rock climbing is not that way. The competition scene is like the pinnacle of competition climbing, but it is not the pinnacle of rock climbing. And I'm fortunate enough to have been around the pro climbing community since I was like 15 years old, right? Like a lot of my friends, like I said earlier, are still pro climbers. A lot of people, I worked in the climbing industry at a company with a lot of people who are now, senior, senior level, C-suite levels at outdoor companies. And like climbing really cares about the outdoor aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
There is the competition side, and it is an Olympic sport, and in LA it will be a Paralympic sport, which is great. But the competition side is in its infancy in paraclimbing.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Sure.
It's not super fully funded. They accepted it into LA. There's 12 categories, I think, or 13, 12 or 13 of disability. So you get placed in a category based on your level of disability.
Sure.
They're still working that system out, definitely, in climbing, because it's how your disability affects your sport, right? So like my disability, I have a balance and proprioception disability and left-sided weakness from my stroke. So it's hard for me to ride a bike. So I ride a three-wheel bike because it's more balanced. I have very limited power on my left side, and we ride, and everybody on the trike has a balance disability, balance and weakness disability, so they can't ride a regular bike. Climbing is a little bit more nuanced because the categories are large, like the breadth of disability is larger, like, and so they're still kind of figuring that side of it out. Like I was doing paracycling and I didn't even know paraclimbing was like a thing. Right. And I was teaching a climbing class in Idaho after a bike race. The company that held the bike race, Challenge Athletes Foundation, they were hosting a climbing thing, and they're like, "Hey, you should come rock climbing with us." And I was like, "Well, like I've been rock climbing for 25 years, and I was a pro climber." And they're like, "Well, then maybe you should come be an instructor." And this girl was there. She's like, her name's Emily Gray. She's a climber from South Africa. She was like, why are you doing cycling? Like, why don't you do climbing? Like, and I was like, paraclimbing's a thing? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And I wasn't training. I was like climbing in the gym a little bit, like getting my kids in there and stuff, but not a lot, especially after my stroke. I was mostly focused on cycling. And I went to my first national championships for paraclimbing. This is kind of funny. I didn't know anybody. And that community is tight.
Yeah.
Right? They know everybody knows everybody. And I go, it's my first nationals for paraclimbing, and I ended up winning the national championships 2022. Yeah, and I'm like, sweet, like fun, like this is awesome. Like it was really cool. But it wasn't like at the level of competition that the cycling is at. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Like
Still.
it was still very like rudimentary. Like the climbs weren't that. It's gotten a lot better in the years since then, as opposed to like the level of difficulty of everything and the professionalism of the athletes going way up since 2022. But I win this climbing competition, everybody's pissed, right? Everyone's like, "Who's this guy? He's not even disabled. He's faking it. Like he just came here, because I climbed every route without falling, and I was like, okay, like." Everyone's like, "What is going on?" Like people were like, like I came down, people were giving me dirty looks, coming up to me being like, "Where are you from?" Like all this stuff. And here I am, like an internationally classified paracyclist. Like, yes, I'm disabled, everybody. Like you're not even have international classification yet.
Oh my goodness.
But then there was the MC of the competition doing the viewing was a girl that I grew up climbing with. She comes down and was like, "Dennis, what are you doing here?" And I was like, "Megan, remember when I joined the Marines? I got all blown up all these times and all." And she's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." I'm like, and then I had a stroke. It's a second stroke, and I've had two strokes. And she's like, "What?" I had no idea.
Mm.
And then all these climbers are like, "Wait, you know this guy?" And she's like, yes, he's like one of the best competition climbers from the early 2000s in the world. Everyone's like, oh, they're like, how long have you been climbing? And I'm like, it's 2022. I'd been climbing since 96. So what was that? 26 years. And I'm like, oh, I've been climbing for a while. And they're like, well, I've been climbing for like 4 years. How long have you been climbing? And I was like, 26 years. And they were like, oh, okay. Makes way more sense. Now, like, I know everybody. I'm friends with everybody. Like, everybody wants me to push the limits in climbing. But yeah, like, I had an unfortunate year last year, 2023. They changed the classification rule. So it moved me up a category. So I'm climbing. I am now like severely the most disabled person in the category. So like I should be a category down, but the rule change was kind of funky and we appealed it. So I'm in this category that I'm not competitive in just based on my disability. And so after that, and then like they chose LA Paralympics. They only chose 4 of the 13 categories to be in the Paralympics, and either of the categories I would be in aren't going to be in it. And so I'm like, okay, like I got to pick one. It was kind of like which one are you going to pick, Dennis? Which one are you going to pick? And I'm like, well, like I'm going to pick cycling. And last year in 2025 was the first year of the 4-year cycle. I focused a little more on climbing, a little less on cycling. Didn't have the results I wanted in cycling. Didn't end up having the results I wanted in climbing, and was like, okay, well, like I really have to focus on one. And right now my focus is cycling, going to LA.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to just also remind listeners too, as well. And they're probably thinking like the same thing. 2025, you came out with this TEDx, right? It was in
Yep.
25.
Yeah.
So look at your progression. My goodness. I mean, I don't know how you are juggling all of these sports. And then alongside, you're starting something completely brand new and you make it to the ultimate, like it's elite speaking, should I say, for the TEDx.
Yeah.
I mean, this is unbelievable, Dennis. It's truly remarkable what you have accomplished. And
Thank you.
I have so many questions to ask you. I just want to be like, cognizant of time, but
Yeah.
as I think about like with sport alongside speaking too, I want to talk about like big picture lessons, like going through these journeys, just even recently. And I just want to mention to listeners and reiterate it, but you competed in the men's RP2 para rock climbing category and are the 2022 and 2024 national
And
champion.
2025 actually. Yeah, I got to update my website. Yeah, I was in RP2 for 2025 national championships that I went to an international competition, and that's where I got reclassified. So I went to the international competition being like, man, I'm going to do great in this competition. And then they reclassified me up. And even like people I know, coach, everyone's like, dude, you're a host. You're so host.
Dennis,
Like, yeah.
it's like, are you a human? I mean, literally, like all of these champion, these awards. But then, like I said, I mean, you're in TEDx classification, if you will, for public speaking, and I really do. I have so many different directions I want to take this, but I would love to hear as far as the lessons that you have learned, even just say from 2022 to now. We're just starting 2026 right now, but what are maybe some new lessons that you have been able to take on with you, like through sport, through your whole experience of making it to the TEDx stage?
So the first thing that you talked about, like how do you balance all this stuff, right? And I think that comes back from the military. When I went through a lot of training, and especially in the senior like intelligence training, like stuff I went through, they kind of overload you to the point where if you try to do everything, you will fail, right? So this is kind of one of the basics of this higher level training that we got, was like they load you up with so much stuff that it is not humanly possible to do it all. So then you have to learn to prioritize. And so I have that ability of being like, 80% is okay, like, and so in 2022, when that was really my first year in paracycling international competition. 2021, I did my first trike race and my first international race, but those were the only two races I did that year because then it was the Tokyo Games and I missed out on those by like one spot. And then but it was great because I only had two races under my belt and I was still brand new to it. And so then 2022 was kind of my first year. And that year, like if you ask my wife, like I was a head case. Like if I missed like one training day, you could ask my coach too. I'd be like, I'm done. I don't even know why. Like this is pointless. Like I'm not even why am I even doing this? Like if I'm missing training, I'm doing like this is gonna be terrible. But over the years, I've realized like, okay, you know what? Like I'm not gonna train on the weekends because I'm gonna spend that time with my family. My wife works tons of hours. She needs me present on the weekends. Right. And then when I was able to finally get back into snowboarding, it took 4 years for us to figure out how to get me back on snow. But now like my kids are off on the ski race team and we have just the best group of friends whose kids are all the ski race, like they were in ski school lessons together and now they're on the ski race team together. And we go like be 20-year-olds with careers. And, it's like, there's like a funny joke going around. It's like 40-year-olds or just 20-year-olds with grown-up money. Like, like we just go play and like so then I can spend that time with them and I spend it with my wife and then the kids are happy, like we're doing those things. And I learned that it's okay to not do everything, right? I'm no longer in a world where if I fail someone gets hurt.
Yeah.
Like and I try to talk it like, businesses, yes, like if you fail, it can have severe consequences. But if you try to do everything and you have that grit mentality of like, I am going to push through so I can do everything, well, maybe if you fail early, you make a $2,500 mistake for your company or for your whatever. But as you keep pushing through and you're like, I'm missing that, I can't fit, and you're just a head case and you can't do all these things, well, maybe that's now a $250,000 mistake. Like,
so true.
So learning to be vulnerable and then having the self-love to be like, it's okay for me to fail. I am not a bad person. And then taking disciplined action in fixing what you need to fix and then leaning on your community when you need to lean on your community. So it all goes back to those 4 pillars that I talk about in my TED Talk. Like that's how I balance everything. If I am seeing that my training's not going right, I will go to my wife and be like, look, I don't feel I don't feel like my training is going right. What can we do? And she is so helpful. But when I was before, I'm missing training. I can't do all these things. She's like, I don't want you to do this. But when I'm like, hey, I'm being vulnerable, like this isn't going right. I need more time, or maybe I need to ride on Saturdays for a few weeks, which I'm doing right now because I'm not snowboarding right now. I had a shoulder injury. And so she's like, yeah, like go do that and then come back, And so it's that harmony, like you said, it's that not work-life balance, but that work-life harmony, but then standing on those 4 pillars of redefining perseverance.
That is incredible, and it just reminds me as I ask you this next question, as far as just family and how important like that support system is. And I just want to highlight your kids and you being a father as well, for your kids to be able to see your experience and even sharing certain experiences with them. What do you hope that they will be able to take forward with them throughout life?
Yeah, wow, what a great question. I think that them seeing me, like I talked about earlier, doing the things I love to do, like that's what I'm trying to instill in them. And like they really, like when they first started skiing, they were like, but now they love it, right? And then, we teach them lessons like, hey, skiing's expensive. Like, if you want to do this when you're a grown up, maybe you need to study more. And like, maybe you need to apply yourself and work hard and be vulnerable and ask for help. And if you don't understand something, don't be stubborn, because we can move you forward if you have that vulnerability and ask for help and lean on your community. But really, yeah, like don't giving up the things you love to do. Like they know I've been rock climbing since I was 11, right? Like one of my friends, I told you about him earlier, like from climbing growing up. Like I was at his house a few days ago for dinner. They have kids around the same age. My son and his son are like best buds. And it's like, like we know each other from our community, not from school or our neighborhood or whatever. We know each other from our community, and that's really important for, I think, my kids to develop too, and they are developing that with the ski side of it, where they're ski racing in there. It's not just like you're kind of forced friends at school, right? And I have lots of friends from school, but the people I hang out with are the people I grew up rock climbing with, or the people I ski with, or the people I ride bikes with. Like, like that's my community. And so I think showing them that, yeah, and then showing them that vulnerability and failure. They see me lose races, right? Like I didn't get a gold medal in Paris, but I was pretty happy with the silver. Like, like gold was the goal, but silver was just as good in my book. Like, and so they see that, and they see like, oh, it's okay. It's okay not to be the best at everything. And it's okay to do the things that you love to do, and just take it with you your whole life.
I think that's incredible. And, I was thinking about just the power of sport and the lessons that it teaches us like throughout our life. And, I feel like younger generations, it's so important to be able to openly discuss. And you mentioned the word of like failure. It's interesting, like from my perspective, I've never viewed that word as like, I always call it like perceived failure, but really if it's like making a mistake, or if you're going out for a certain goal and you don't quite make it, it's being able to reassess and to understand, just like you said. I mean, look at all the training that went into that. And that's unbelievable. It's incredible to be a silver medalist. I mean,
Right.
it's unbelievable. And so I think teaching those skills, especially in younger generations, to be able to see how even the character development, like you said, like being able to reassess, like, where do you want to go from here? Being able to understand, I mean, just living in that moment and being present, and how incredible of an accomplishment that is. I think that's absolutely, those are lessons that they will certainly be able to take on with them as they move forward. And, Dennis, to be able to round out this incredible podcast episode, I mean,
Thanks.
talk about like just being able to learn so much from you, from your different experiences, and to learn from those lessons that you've been able to speak about. But could you provide maybe our audience a positive message or a particular like positive quote for this community?
Yeah, definitely. I think I have like a pretty positive quote. I think I have it up on my website, and I've said it like a million times in this podcast, is don't ever give up the things that you love to do, because that is what makes you you, right? I try to work with, there's a lot of like mid-career, like, oh, I made it, I'm gonna buy a bike. Like, well, is that what you love to do? Like, what do you love to do? And if you don't know, then yeah, go explore things. But really, like, don't ever give up doing the things that you love to do, because there's always ways to do them. Like, I was a pro climber, and I still climb to this day, even after 6 traumatic brain injuries and 2 strokes, all of those things, I still climb. I still snowboard. Uh, it took me 4 years of adapting to figuring it out, trying all these different modalities of adaptive skiing, and finally finding the right person, the right instruction, who was able to teach me how to get back on a snowboard. And it was like that. And it's still like, it is what I love to do. I love being in the mountains. I love being outside climbing. And I love racing bikes. So like, those are the things I'm going to do. Yeah, I hope I can instill that in other people, to always continue to do the things that you love to do.
That is such an inspiring message, Dennis. And, I think about this conversation and what an inspiration you are to so many people. My goodness, like I said, within the sport community, within all of those separate sports, your military background, I've learned so much as far as like lessons, like key important lessons, the brilliance of basics. That one is going to stand out, like being
Yeah.
vulnerable, focusing on community, and really just, like you said, just with that last message, but like always being able to live out and to do things that you love. And Dennis, I want to wish you the absolute best as you move forward
Thank you.
or speaking career, with your sport
Thank
career. All the
Yeah,
best.
definitely. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Courtney.